Gabbi Doolin was kidnapped, assaulted, and strangled to death on November 14, 2015, while attending a football game at the Allen County High School football stadium in Scottsville, Kentucky. She was at the game to watch her brother Alec play. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Human Wreckage, covering another disturbing story of a less than human person. Can't say a man because no man would do such a horrible act. Truly heartbreaking. This episode is about the evil acts that Timothy Madden committed. Our hearts and prayers go out to Gabbi Doolin's family. Let's get into it. Dressed in a cute pink dress, Gabbi played hide and seek with friends near the bleachers during the game. One of the kids Gabbi played with asked Amy, Gabbi's mother, if she had seen the girl because she could not find her. That's when Amy frantically searched for her daughter and alerted authorities. Police found the 7-year-old girl's body 25 minutes after she disappeared from the game. She was face down in a creek. Police locked down the scene and asked everyone at the game that night if they saw the girl with anyone that night or noticed anything unusual. Tips quickly led them to the home of 40-year-old Timothy Madden. Madden attended the game that night to watch his son play. The clothing and boots he wore were stained with blood, and an officer who visited his home said it appeared that he had blood around his genital area. Many people mentioned his name to police when asked if they noticed anything unusual that evening. November 20, 2015, DNA taken from Gabbi's body came back, matching the blood taken from Madden's clothing.
One step closer to justice, police arrest a man for the murder of this 7-year-old Gabbi Doolin. Tonight, we have the arrest warrant, which says there's a DNA match in this case. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shannon Cogan.
And I'm Scott Reynolds. Kentucky State Police say DNA from the suspect, Timothy Madden, matches that of the little girl taken during her autopsy. It was 1 week ago that Gabbi disappeared during that football game in Scottsville down in Allen County. She was found less than 30 minutes later near the field in a creek in a wooded area. Madden is seen here being hauled into the Barron County Jail this afternoon. Tonight, William Joy was there and spoke to a community still coming to terms with this unbelievable crime.
Right now, Madden is being held here at the Barron County Detention Center. All throughout Scottsville, the people I talked to say they're happy an arrest was made, but at the same time, they say their community will never be the same.
We made over 200 Wednesday and Thursday. We ran out of ribbon. We could have probably sold that many more. Yes, we had a very busy week.
As Sheila Jones folds another bow, she thinks of the 7-year-old it's for.
You know, I heard somebody make a remark. She's probably just running and playing somewhere. They'll find her in a few minutes.
A couple ribbon-wrapped light poles away at Goad Funeral Home, Gwen Davis is still in shock.
I really couldn't believe that that would happen here, you know, because everybody knows everybody.
For Davis, that includes Timothy Madden, who was arrested Friday.
I'm innocent.
Just the thoughts that someone could do that to a child, knowing him, I really couldn't believe that that would happen here, you know, because everybody knows everybody.
She says the arrest has helped ease fears.
I think now that the arrest has been made, I'm hoping that the family can have some peace, and I'm hoping that the community will be able to breathe a little easier.
It's a case that shook even the state police.
It's not been an easy investigation on any of them. It's very taxing.
And it's one Scottsville won't soon forget.
You know, I think our security, feeling safe, is gone. We've been lucky that something like this hadn't happened.
I think things will be different now.
Today, the Kentucky State Police said they couldn't give out many details. They say even though they have made an arrest, the investigation is still ongoing. In Barron County, William Joy, Wave 3 News.
Madden being held on a $1 million bond. He has a 5-month-old daughter and a 2nd-grade daughter, the same age as Gabbi Doolin. And Madden went to high school with Gabbi's father.
He was taken into custody where he initially denied any involvement with Gabbi's murder. Transcripts of the initial police interview state that Madden told police You guys are at the wrong place when they knocked on his door. He told reporters that he was innocent and that you could ask anyone who knew him.
What do you have to say about the charges you're facing?
It's all bogus. I'm a very innocent man. They can ask anybody that knows me.
Why did they connect you to this murder?
Small town gossip. They said I fit the suspect.
Do you know what that was?
6 foot tall, brown coat, long beard. Pretty much that's all I knew about it. But then I knew they found the little girl's body later on that night and then locked the ball game down.
Do you know the Doolin family?
Yes. I know I went to school with him.
You went to school with her dad?
With her daddy, yes.
Amy told investigators that Gabbi was on the cheerleading squad with Madden's daughter and would have trusted him enough to go off with him. The families knew of one another. Until the murder, Madden had a relatively clean criminal record, with only a few misdemeanor, non-violent criminal offenses a part of his history. As the hearing got underway, a detective testified that after Doolin went missing, they gathered everyone who was at the football game and the gym to identify possible suspects. Police went to Madden's home, where he provided them with the clothes he was wearing that night. Officials linked him to the crime after a DNA test matched Doolin's DNA to blood that was found on Madden's underwear and belt buckle. Emotions ran high during Madden's 2019 sentencing. Facing the death penalty, Madden pleaded guilty to the murders. Why did you do it? There's no reason you can give. Gabbi was an innocent little girl at her brother's football game, Amy said as she wept while giving her victim impact statement. Timothy Madden turned his attention elsewhere as she spoke, prompting Gabbi's father, Brian, to spoke up to address Madden and his attorney, saying, "Sir, that's the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen. We've had 4 years waiting. You can let him listen to what she has to say. Do you understand me?" Suddenly, Brian became overwhelmed with emotion and appeared to lurch forward toward his daughter's killer while yelling, 3 minutes, that's all we've asked. You can listen to her for 3 minutes. I'm sick of this. He needs to hear what she has to say.
Because of you, we lost our baby girl. Our boys lost their sister before she was even 8 years old.
4 years after 7-year-old Gabriella Gabbi Doolin was kidnapped and murdered, her mother Amy gave a victim impact statement to the judge before the man responsible was sentenced. 42-year-old Timothy Madden will spend life in prison without the possibility of parole, according to a ruling Wednesday by Allen Circuit Judge Janet Crocker. Madden's charges stem from November 14th of 2015, when Doolin went missing during a football game at Allen County Scottsville High School, and her body was discovered in a nearby creek. Madden's DNA was found on several items at the crime scene. In August of this year, just days before his trial was supposed to begin in Hardin County, he pleaded guilty to murder and kidnap charges and entered an Alford plea on rape and sodomy charges. An Alford plea means he does not admit guilt, but he acknowledges that there is enough evidence for a jury to convict him. Madden's sentence came after a day of testimony from witnesses called by Commonwealth Attorney Corey Morgan and Public Defense Attorney Tom Griffiths. Morgan says the day was about presenting evidence to prove the rape and sodomy charges, so he called 3 law enforcement officers, 1 DNA analyst, and a witness to testify. Witness Wendy Blankenship was at the football game in 2015 and says she noticed a man near her in the stands being loud and vulgar, and that when Gabbi and 2 friends left the stands to play hide and seek, that man, later identified as Madden, was also gone. And Wendy also learned one of the girls Doolin had been playing with was Madden's daughter. Detective Wes Medley says when Gabbi was reported missing, they called attendees at the game into the gym and questioned them, which led to Madden becoming a suspect. When Sergeant Adam Morgan arrived at Madden's house that night, he answered the door in his underwear and told police he was at the football game and had been playing hide and seek with Gabbi. Morgan also called Doolin's mom Amy to give a victim impact statement, during which Gabbi's dad Brian yelled at Madden for whispering with Griffiths.
"Sir, that's the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen. Give us just a minute. We've had 4 years waiting. You listen to me. No, you can look around all you want to."
Which led to both families being removed from the courtroom for a brief recess. After the impact statement was finished, Griffiths called Madden's sister, Pam Kinslow, to testify, and he also read a statement from Madden himself, in which Madden claims he is innocent and was set up by the Kentucky State Police. I'm Emily Zanto reporting.
Let's take a brief recess, if you'll please. If you'll escort Mr. Madden out.
30 minutes. You can't give somebody 3 minutes to say something?
We're in recess at this time. If you'll please escort Mr. Madden out.
Should have recessed 4 years ago.
We're in recess at this time.
Now's not the time for him.
Let's go ahead and escort. Mr. Morgan, at this time.
This is all we've asked. We haven't asked.
Not enough respect. And you're an attorney. You're paid by the taxpayers. You're paid by the taxpayers.
Absolutely. We're off the record.
The judge momentarily cleared the courtroom after chaos erupted between the Madden and Doolin families. After a brief recess, Amy finished her statement, and a member of Madden's family provided a statement on his behalf, stating that he was a loving person. Madden entered the plea because it was the right thing to do for himself and for the victim's family and for everybody involved, including the community, said Madden's attorney Tom Griffiths in a press conference. Upon agreement with the Doolin family, the death penalty was taken off the table and Madden was sentenced to life in prison. The judge said she likely would have sentenced Madden to death had the family not agreed to the plea deal sentencing him to life in prison.
Well, I'm going to start first by simply observing. For Mr. Madden to maintain his innocence is at best an act of cowardice, and at worst is indicative of a pathology that is difficult to comprehend. It is hard, I appreciate, for this family and this community at large to understand why it is that it took us 4 years to get to this day, because the overwhelming guilt of evidence as a result of outstanding law enforcement activity, investigation from the outset is the same today as it was within 4 days of that child's death. And over the course of these 4 years, we have talked about that scientific evidence in very clinical terms. We have simply talked about the DNA evidence and have carefully guarded that DNA evidence was a match of mathematical probability beyond comprehension of semen from the vaginal cavity and anal area of a 7-year-old child. And to suggest that somehow that evidence was planted and that law enforcement somehow got this wrong is simply ludicrous. And the lies that Mr. Madden has perpetrated on his family, including his own child, is an act of simple selfishness. As I said, he lied to his family. They initially paid for lawyers for him, and they've been here all along and going to continue to support him. But there is no doubt that he is guilty of these crimes. And of course, there is a perversity with respect to this plea that, again, is hard to understand. I will admit that I kidnapped and killed this child, but I'm not going to admit that I raped and sodomized this child because somehow my family might think less of me. My family might not support me. When, again, the evidence of the kidnap and murder is the presence of his semen all over that child's genitalia. Her blood on his underwear. And so the question is ultimately, what is justice? What is justice for Gabriella? Most people would probably say that life without parole is too lenient. And I'm confident if this case had proceeded to jury trial, that 12 jurors in Hardin County, Kentucky would have found this man guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of all 4 counts, and they would have recommended the ultimate penalty of death. When I took that plea, I observed that the Doolin family had shown great mercy on Mr. Madden and his family. More particularly, what I'm hopeful is that ultimately this will bring some closure for them. Because again, a lot of people mistake, the Allen County Jail for prison. And it's a rude awakening when all of a sudden they go under razor wire. I've observed Mr. Madden through all of these proceedings, and not one time have I observed 1 ounce of remorse. Not once have I observed 1 ounce of fear. I too have watched him come in and smile and smirk and blow kisses and slouch at his chair, as if this were somehow happening to somebody else. But the reality is, this court accepts the Commonwealth's plea. He'll be moved immediately from where he is to maximum security prison, housed with other offenders who have committed similar heinous crimes. Whether or not ultimately Department of Corrections can keep him safe in that environment remains to be seen. The reality is that, and I don't say that facetiously, I don't say that jokingly, is that for anyone to perceive that life without parole will not be filled with a lifetime of suffering for this man, that this man won't experience punishment on this earth. He will. He will. But more particularly, the measure of his life is defined by what he did to this child. I can only hope for his children that it will not be the measure of theirs, because they are just as innocent as Gabriella was. And the only comfort that ultimately that the Doolins can take away is that after today, they will not have to sit in the same room with their child's killer. They will not have to breathe the same air of a man who raped and sodomized and then killed their child. And however many times that they have said, how many times a day, that they hoped that no other family would have to experience the unimaginable pain that they experienced then, and that they will experience today and they will experience tomorrow, that no other family will have to experience that. Well, they can take comfort in that, because life means life. In contrast to a death penalty where ultimately there would have been decades of appeals. Constantly riding that roller coaster. Today, it is over. And what I am hopeful is that ultimately that you will be able to move forward. And that Gabriella Doolin's life will not be measured by her death, but by her life. And the spirit that she brought into this world. The court accepts the Commonwealth's recommendation. Before we do that, though, there are some administrative matters I need to address briefly. First of all, Mr. Griffiths, with respect to the pre-sentence investigation report, are there any changes, corrections, or clarifications to that report?
Your Honor, we went over that report with Mr. Madden. There was a single error on page 37. It lists the address and phone number of his son incorrectly. I can correct that now, or I can provide it to you in writing, however that best works with the court.
Is that with respect to Michael?
That's correct.
And that he still resides with his mother and his sister? Right. Okay. Thank you.
The local address and phone number.
I'll make that clarification. And then with respect to the comprehensive sex offender evaluation, is there any changes or corrections to that?
No, Judge.
All right.
We did have medical records that we thought should be made part of the PSI, which would include the psychological evaluation as well as his medical records.
If you want to go ahead and tender those, please.
Your Honor, for the record, Mr. Griffiths did contact us about that earlier, and we had no objection to that being included.
So this, with respect to what is being made a part of this, it is the psychological examination from Dr. Nichols. Are you asking that any other of the reports be tendered with the pre-sentence investigation report? That would include the report from the Kentucky Psychiatric Facility. I mean, again, that was simply in response to the notice.
And I don't think that's necessary, Judge. The other is literally the medical records from his local doctor.
Right. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead. Then, any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Madden, I'm going to ask you to stand, please. For the kidnapping of Gabriella Doolin, causing her death, you are sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. For rape, first degree, of Gabriella Doolin, a child under the age of 12 years, you are sentenced to 50 years. For the separate offense of sodomy, first degree, of Gabriella Doolin, a child under the age of 12 years, you are sentenced to 50 years. And finally, you are sentenced to life without a possibility of parole for the murder of Gabriella Doolin in combination with rape first degree and sodomy first degree. For a total effective sentence of life without parole, and as explained during the colloquy, life without parole means that you will remain incarcerated for the rest of your natural life. You are remanded into custody at this time to begin service of that state sentence consistent with the motion that has been filed by your attorney. The Department of Corrections will be required to transport you to a state facility. In all likelihood, that will be the Kentucky State Penitentiary in Eddyville within the next 45 days. You'll remain housed in the Hardin County Detention Center until that date. At this time, Sheriff, if you will take him back into custody. Mr. Griffiths, Mr. Maddox, do you need to meet with Mr. Madden any further at this time?
No, Judge.
All right. Let's go ahead and get him escorted out first.
He was sentenced as follows: kidnapping with victim, death, life imprisonment without possibility of parole; murder, life imprisonment without possibility of parole; rape in the first degree, 50 years; sodomy in the first degree, 50 years. Timothy Madden deserved the death penalty. I am glad the judge allowed the parents of Gabbi to give input, however, so justice for what it is worth is served for their peace of mind. This was a tough case to cover. I left out a lot of the disturbing details. I guess the biggest question is why? Why would someone do this? Total innocent life taken away for no reason. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Human Wreckage. If you like this episode, please give us a like. Hit the subscribe button to join us for future episodes. I am Thomas. Take care, everyone.